Welcome to the Ian Cameron Sports Report here at Pub Sports Radio for Tuesday, November 10th. We're going to do a Monday Night Football Patriots-Jets recap and looking ahead to MAC-tion. It's all about the MAC today on the Ian Cameron Sports Report. MAC College Football Preview. We'll look at tonight and tomorrow night's MAC games. Before that, though, Patriots and Jets. Look, that game was more competitive and entertaining than it had any right to be. I'm shocked I got as entertained by that game as I was. But let's give the New York Jets credit. And let's give Joe Flacco credit for a guy that's been ridiculed and mocked, and especially from yours truly, who really hasn't given Joe Flacco a whole lot of accolades and credit for the last few years. Not that he deserves it. He's been a pretty bad starting quarterback the few times he's been able to get in as a backup starting quarterback when he was with Denver, earlier this season against for the Jets. And let's not forget, with Joe Flacco starting earlier this season, the Jets got shut out by Miami. That's pretty difficult to do. And Flacco was just so bad in that game that the Dolphins couldn't get anything going. But boy, he was great last night. And the fact that New England couldn't even get close to sacking Flacco until the very end, of course, when they needed it. That's really one of the few times they got pressure on him. But for most of the night, it was a clean pocket for Joe Flacco. He still showed he's got some arm ability if you're going to give him that much time to throw the football. It was a really good night for the Jets offense. But of course, the Jets still a winless team because the Jets did what the Jets tend to do: snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's exactly what ended up happening once again. Hard to fathom. You can be up 10 points, 6 minutes to go, fourth quarter, and end up having the game tied. Then have a chance to at least control the ball, possess the football, get a couple of first downs. I'm not saying go down the field and score, but get a couple of first downs and ensure that you at least get the game to overtime. And the New York Jets can't even do that properly. They take the big sack, or they give up the big sack to Flacco. They throw the ball every down so that none of the time comes off the clock. And sure enough, New England's got all kinds of time left, all their timeouts intact as well. Just go down the field and set up Nick Folk for the game-winning field goal, which is exactly what happened. Nevertheless, if you bet the Jets, you were comfortably a wire-to-wire winner with the Jets getting as much as 10.5 points last night as home underdogs. They do cover the number, but they lose the game straight up, and the game flies over the total. There was sharp money coming in on that over yesterday, or a heavy amount of money. I shouldn't always call it sharp because sometimes this sharp money isn't so sharp based on the result, but it was last night when it comes to that money that came in on the over. That went up to 42.5 by kickoff, and it was all of that money cashing in. It was clearly the right side. Two teams struggling, but two teams that kind of were aggressive offensively, pushed the attack, pushed the ball down the field. Even Cam Newton threw the ball a lot more than he has in recent games. And, of course, Flacco had no problem finding Crowder and Perriman, Mims, and all his receivers down the field. So Jets cover, game goes over the total. Props analysis that I gave you on the Ian Cameron Sports Report show yesterday was very good, spot on. I mean, I told you Brashad Perriman props would be worth a look. He ends up having a big night. I said Jacoby Myers props were worth a look. He goes off receiving the football from Cam Newton in the New England offense. We got Perriman as a touchdown prop winner. Crowder as a touchdown prop winner. We almost got Myers. It feels like that's the one thing that I'm disappointed about, that Myers didn't get a touchdown, because with the number of receptions and over 100 receiving yards, felt like he was a guy that deserved a touchdown with the way he played in the passing game for Cam Newton and the Patriots last night. But overall, the analysis on the props last night, yesterday on the show was solid. Jets get the point spread cover. Patriots win the game, and the game goes over the total. All right, let's do a MAC college football preview. We got 3 MAC games on Tuesday tonight, 3 MAC games tomorrow on Wednesday. Rapid fire through all of them. We'll start with Akron, Ohio. Ohio 27.5 point home favorites, 59.5 the total in this game. Akron's not a team I can back, okay? You lose 58-13 to Western Michigan last week. And it's Western Michigan, too, starting with a new quarterback in Ellaby. And yet the Akron Zips defense just nowhere to be found again. Offensively, they're kind of starting over a little bit this season as well. Akron, in terms of their offense, Cato Nelson, I'm at least glad he's not starting for the Akron Zips, because he never showed me any sort of ability to be a good quarterback for this program. And I think Tom Arth finally figured that out and said, you know what, we got to look in a different direction at quarterback. They gave Zach Gibson the start last week. I'm not saying he was great, and certainly he wasn't, but, you know, he did move the ball at times, but there's just so limited. There's not a great skill position talent. The offensive line is still pretty bad for this Akron team. Ohio, though, I mean, you know, they're going with the 2-quarterback system, Frank Solich this year. The UNLV transfer is on this team now, Armani Rogers. Curtis Rourke, younger brother of Nathan Rourke, of course, who was the former quarterback here, Ohio, fellow Canadian as well. The Rourke brothers, Nathan, and now the new quarterback, Curtis, here for Ohio. They're both Canadians, so I always like to see them do well. Curtis Rourke's more of the passing quarterback. Armani Rogers more of the running quarterback, but either way, I mean, Akron can't stop the pass and they can't stop the run. So I think it's two guys that should be able to have success here. Just a question of, do they win by 4 touchdowns? I mean, this is a really big number to be laying, and Ohio's defense struggled a lot last week against Central Michigan. So, you know, I don't want Akron. It's Ohio or pass for me in this game. I'm telling you that right now. I would only be laying the points with the favorite. You're talking about almost laying 4 touchdowns with a leaky defense, but I do have my doubts if Akron offensively can take advantage of that. So still for me, favorite or pass with Akron and Ohio. Kent State Bowling Green. Kent State 20.5-point road favorites, 55 the total in this game. Kent State to me is playable if it stays below 21. I mean, Bowling Green last week, their offense was pathetic. I mean, they couldn't protect the quarterback. He was under pressure for most of the game last week for Bowling Green against Toledo. And Toledo's a really good team, but Matt McDonald showed you no clear evidence that he's going to be taking this offense to a much greater level this season. Scott Loeffler already, you know, had a little bit of an emotional outburst after the blowout loss to Toledo. He's already getting frustrated. Game 1, and he's already sort of getting frustrated with what he's seeing from this Bowling Green team. Kent State, they should have success. I like what I'm seeing out of this offense with Sean Lewis, the head coach, this up-tempo, fast-paced, and they run very fast-paced on offense. Dustin Crum, who came on strong last season as the starting quarterback for Kent State, led them to the bowl victory as well, and had a pretty solid game. I think they slowed down a little bit against Eastern Michigan. They didn't really put up a ton of points in the second half, but still did enough to get the victory against Eastern Michigan. I could only lay the points again here with the favorite. I am interested in the over in this game, though. Now with the total 55.5, Kent State plays really fast, and they're going to get a lot of possessions. And if they get a lot of possessions, they can get probably high 30s in points, maybe even crack 40. The question is, could you get 17 points or so out of Bowling? That's the big question. But I think the total's now dropped low enough where the over's got a little value at 55.5. Miami, Ohio Redhawks, Buffalo Bulls. We've got Buffalo, 7.5-point home favorites, 55.5 the total in this game. I like the Buffalo offense a lot. Great offensive line. They were kind of up and down last week against Northern Illinois. Of course, they didn't really need the offense because the defense was scoring on so many possessions for the Bulls against Northern Illinois last week. But I still like the offense. Their offensive line is as experienced and strong an offensive line unit as there is in the MAC this year. Kyle Van Treese at quarterback. He's solid. I don't know if he's great, but he's solid. He got better last year. He's more than capable moving the ball. And they've got Jarrett Patterson, an outstanding running back that should be able to do damage. Miami got gashed against the run a little bit last week. That's concerning now against this Buffalo team, maybe the best running back in the conference. Miami of O, I lost with Ball State as a small dog going against Miami O last week. And Miami, Ohio, look, part of the handicap was I didn't really love Brett Gabbert, as the starting quarterback. He's kind of a okay, average, decent quarterback, but not a whole lot of upside. I didn't think that even though they were good last year in the MAC, that I had questions about just how good a quarterback he was. And to me, Brett Gabbert is not anything special. So he gets hurt last week against Ball State. A.J. Meyer comes in and takes over. Damn it if I didn't think this myself, but I'll say it right now. He looked like the better quarterback. I mean, he's the backup on this team, but he came right into the game, fresh off the bench for an injured starter, and he just ripped apart Ball State's defense. He was making plays. He was confident. Showed a really solid arm. there's a lot to like about A.J. Meyer, and I'm assuming he's going to get the start here. The last report I read is that Brett Gabbert was highly doubtful to play tonight, so I'm going to assume he's out. Hasn't been confirmed yet, but I think there's a good chance A.J. Meyer's the quarterback for Miami. And Buffalo gave up some points in yardage, and they allowed a Northern Illinois offense that was kind of starting over last year to move the ball a bit. So I think Miami can do some things offensively, but I do think Buffalo here at home can get the job done. I do lean to the Buffalo side in this game, 7.5. But I also like this game up and over the total as well of 55.5. The over, by the way, is 6-1 the last 7 head-to-head meetings with these two teams, Miami and Buffalo. We go to Wednesday now, Central Michigan, Northern Illinois. We got the Chippewas laying just north of a touchdown on the road, 57.5 the total. I'm still not a big Ross Bowers guy. They actually outperformed what I expected them to play like on offense last week against Buffalo, but I'm still not a big believer in Ross Bowers as a starting quarterback. He didn't play well at Cal. There's a reason he's not there anymore. And it's not like Cal's had a great offense all these years, and he couldn't make it there. So that's my issues with Ross Bowers. They can run the ball a little bit. That's the good news. Central Michigan, I cashed a ticket with them last week in the victory against Ohio. There's a lot to like about Central. You know, I like Jim McElwain. He's done a really good job with this team since he's arrived on the scene in Mount Pleasant. Daniel Richardson looked fine as the quarterback. They're still waiting for David Moore to return from his suspension. Until then, Daniel Richardson looked good last week at quarterback for Central. You know, they've got some good receivers. They were able to run the football very well. The defense did struggle last week against Ohio, but Ohio's got that dual quarterback system in place that can be a little bit difficult in that first game. Yeah, I lean Central. I don't know if I'm crazy about going with laying more than a touchdown on the road, but I do lean a little bit to Central in that game. I still think Northern Illinois is fade material. They didn't cover last week, blown out by Buffalo. The final score was closer than the actual game would indicate. I think Northern Illinois has got problems this year. So this is another game where I'm only interested in the favorite in this one. Eastern Michigan, Ball State. We got Ball State 8.5 point home favorite, 60.5, 61 the total. Thank you. Drew Plitt, I still like this guy as a quarterback. He pissed the hell out of me last week with this brutal, just awful decision to throw that ball late in the game. Play for overtime, man. You're going to get to overtime. You don't have to force anything. And he just made a brutal throw. Miami picks it off, and sure enough, they can run out the clock and kick the game-winning field goal. Brutal decision by Drew Plitt, but he's still a good quarterback, and he still had a pretty good game last week against Miami. I think that back home now against EMU, their offense should be able to do whatever they want here. Eastern Michigan's defense wasn't great last week against Kent, and now they're facing probably one of the best offenses and one of the better quarterbacks in the MAC this week. Ball State in the over to me is what I'm looking at here. I know Eastern Michigan's quarterback last week was solid, Preston Hutchinson in the game against Kent State, but they fell short when the pressure was on. You know, when they fell behind by a big margin, then Eastern Michigan started to move the ball. But when the game was close and, you know, Kent State had to tighten things up defensively, Eastern Michigan struggled a little bit more to move the ball. Ball State's defense, though, is still very, very suspect. I mean, I was shocked that A.J. Meyer comes in there for an injured Brett Gabbert and moves the ball at will against Ball State's defense. They've still got some holes back there. They gave up a lot of points last year. They're giving up points this year. That said, I do think Eastern Michigan's going to have a lot of trouble stopping Ball State. And I think Ball State can get an extra couple of stops over Eastern Michigan to allow themselves maybe to cover this number. I hate to be so chalk heavy, but it's kind of the way I'm thinking here this week in the MAC, that we'll see a lot of the favorites come in. I would lean to the Ball State side here as well as the over in this game. By the way, it's also the second road game in a row for Eastern Michigan, so a little bit of a tough schedule to start for Chris Creighton's team. They have been great road underdogs, though. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant on the Ball State side here, but I still think they're the better team. And I think their offense versus Eastern Michigan's defense is going to be, I think, a little bit of a mismatch in favor of Ball State. Toledo and Western Michigan to wrap up the MAC slate tomorrow night, Wednesday night. Should be a great game. Western Michigan, 2.5 point home favorites. Total 59.5 in this game. Toledo beat up on Bowling Green and dominated both sides of the ball. Going to be tougher here, though, against Western Michigan. You're playing a much better opponent here, a caliber of team. And Caleb Ellaby taking over. Remember, John Wasink was the quarterback at Western Michigan last year. He was a really good quarterback. Caleb Ellaby was pretty good last week in the game against, now it was Akron. It was a brutal team, the worst team in the MAC the last couple of seasons, but 3 touchdowns, 12 of 16, 262 yards, had some big plays, had 2 big touchdown passes of 68 plus yards against Akron. Now the question is, can you duplicate that here against Toledo? Toledo should have, on paper, one of the best defenses in the MAC. That's going to be the question. All we've got from Ellaby is a sample size of 1 game against maybe the worst team and worst defense in the MAC. That's not Toledo. Eli Peters wasn't great last week for Toledo, but he's got so much more starting experience at the quarterback spot over Ellaby. The Toledo defense, to me, is one of the best defenses in the MAC here. And I think in a big game of this magnitude, I probably have to give his experience edge. Give his experience, I should say, a little bit of an edge over Ellaby here for Western Michigan. Western Michigan's defense was okay last year. I don't know how good it's going to be this year. You can't evaluate a team's defense by holding Akron to 13 points just because of how bad Akron was last year and how bad they're probably going to be again this year. So I don't know how good Western Michigan's defense is. I'm leaning to the Toledo side here in this game. I do think they pull it out and find the win. This number might hit 3 with Western Michigan going up to -3 by kickoff tomorrow night. And if it does hit 3, I'm hitting the bankroll, and I'm hitting the account and getting involved here with Toledo +3 if it gets to that number. The lean is definitely, though, for me toward Toledo. I think they got the chance to get the victory here against Western Michigan. So there's your MAC college football preview, and that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report. Thank you to everyone for watching and supporting the show. Don't just support this show, support everything here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. We've got great content, great shows, live betting shows as well throughout the course of the week with a lot of great people hosting this content on this channel. So Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel, make sure you keep on tuning in for great content. Tomorrow on the Ian Cameron Sports Report, I'll be back with you, and we will do a Thursday football preview. We'll look at Colts-Titans, Thursday night football in the NFL, and we'll look at Colorado State, Boise State, a little Mountain West battle on Thursday night as well. That's coming up tomorrow on the Wednesday edition of the Ian Cameron Sports Report. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great Tuesday night. Good luck with your wagers. Enjoy the games. I'll be back with you tomorrow on Wednesday for another edition of the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report.